All right, welcome to the show, Gearheads. We just got to take in a fantastic weekend at Interlagos. A great sprint race yesterday and a fantastic race today. What a race. This is John Massengale sitting in the studio with Jonathan Green, Les Kaiser.
Hey, don't run out of superlatives. You've got another hour yet.
Don't worry. That's my specialty. And we got Bob Varsha over Zoom and former HAAS F1 team manager Dave O'Neill. What do you think, boys? Bob, let's start with you.
Well, I thought it was a terrific race, in part because it was so unusual. Getting George up front, pole for the HAAS team. I was so disappointed to see Kevin Magnussen knocked out on that first lap. His second time to fall out of a race in Brazil, both times because he was run into by Daniel Ricciardo. Couldn't figure that one out.
Huh.
But it got a little quiet there in the middle as teams worked on their strategies. But then toward the end, the inter-team battles were interesting. The two Mercedes up front, was Russell going to get caught by Lewis Hamilton? The Red Bull teammates, was Verstappen going to pass Perez? And why, if he did? I'm still not quite sure I understand that. Great drive for Alonso. Yeah, really an interesting race. We knew this was a good track for passing, and we certainly saw plenty of that. A lot of it DRS related, sure, but there were also some non-DRS passes in some very tight corners. Most of them, nearly all of them worked. The critical one that did not was down there in turn 2, where Max Verstappen drove it down the inside of Lewis Hamilton, who didn't quite give him a car width, but one way or another.
What was your take on that? Whose fault?
I don't think it was well, it was both guys' fault, which is different than saying it was nobody's fault. Lewis came across, Max was clearly alongside, but, Max didn't have to drive the point home and jeopardize his race as well as Hamilton. So I'd call it a racing incident.
Yeah, I did too.
Jonathan, your take? I know you were excited about George Russell winning this race. I mean, amazing. His first Grand Prix win ever.
Yeah, 82 Grand Prix, entered 2 times runner-up, and the boy from King's Lynn does good. I mean, that is a really good, boy done well. I really am pleased for him. He deserves it. I think the team were right to give him the order of, you're unfettered. You can race the 7-time world champion. And he was there. He got within 1.2. But when he did, he put a special sector in, out of nowhere and kept the gap to over a second. So don't think for 1 minute that Hamilton didn't want to take that win.
Yeah, Hamilton had a nice streak he wanted to keep going.
Well,
yeah.
I knew we were in for it. Lap 55, when the team tells him we're in it to race respectfully, to be respectful and race. Go with it. And I was all righty, here we go.
He is the future of that team, and I really do think that this will open the floodgates this weekend to what is already a very, very confident young man. And, I mean, let's look at the Bottas-Hamilton era versus this era. You don't look at Russell that way. You don't look at him as a secondary guy.
No. I think...
And I thought the way Russell handled those restarts... I thought showed an awful lot of personality, of experience, of confidence, and great timing. I mean, he nailed them both.
And don't you guys feel like that? I felt like with Russell, it wasn't like, oh, he got it. He got to win. This is so great. It was more like he's going to get his wins.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen. Even against Hamilton, I felt like he was going to get his wins. So I think it was just, we've all seen how good he is. So.
Felipe Massa said it yesterday.
Yeah.
Many more to come.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Dave O'Neill, what'd you think of this race? It was sad to see your former teammates at HAAS taken out so early, but other than that, what'd you think?
I enjoyed it. Like Bob says, there was a bit of a lull in the middle of it, but the strategies played out. Everyone had a good go there. It was pretty impressive how Hamilton kept those tyres going for that amount of time. But yeah, all in all, I think George definitely deserved the result. He was in charge all the way through, and good result for the Mercedes team. Finally get on the top step. You could see Red Bull struggled a little bit, seemed to probably eat the tyres up a little bit, that car this weekend. Ferrari again, coming back at the end, but too late really. They needed to get it sorted in the early part of the race. But yeah, not bad.
Clear Ricciardo mistake for taking Magnussen out?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's much to talk about there.
Yeah, he's too hot into it. Took onto the apex. Gators pushed him out, losing
What about Norris?
Yeah. We don't know what happened to the car there at the end, do we? I mean, it would look.
What about Norris and Leclerc early on?
Oh yeah. What do you think, Bob?
Well, I thought it was a very similar situation. A lot of aggression that wound up, causing problems. Notice it was just about at the same part of the track. I think it was just the following car being caught out by the way the car ahead used the brakes. And it was that one was unfortunate. I'm amazed Leclerc got back in the action. I'd be surprised if that collision wasn't the genesis of Norris's problem. They called it electrics, because that could mean just about anything. So very, very tough day for McLaren on all counts. So,
if I had to choose between those two incidents, I lean toward Verstappen being blamed for his with Hamilton, and the other one to me was just a racing incident with Lando. I felt that one wasn't quite as egregious, and I lean a little stronger than you guys. I thought that was Verstappen's fault, but.
Well, he was off the track. We all know that corner. Hamilton turned in where you should turn in at that corner, and at that point, Verstappen was on the green. He was on the rumble strip.
Yeah, and knowing he can't stop. If you're on the rumble strips, you're not going to.
And it's a well-known place to make an overtake, because you can go straight through there. And as long as the other guy backs off, you're in.
Yeah, and if you're going too fast and you can't stop and you oversteer. I mean, you understeer, right? It's the same difference if you're on the rumble strips. You're not going to be able to stop at speed on the rumble strips. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I think it was shades of the bad old Max, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
It was always thought Max is never going to back out, and you have to count on that. And then we had all the fuss at Silverstone last year. This year, I think Max seemed to be much more calm and much more mature in the way he set up passes. This one, I think, was shades of the old Mad Max, getting down in there and not initiating contact, but certainly not doing everything he could have to avoid it.
Okay, so what about Red Bull Radio? Verstappen, radio saying about Perez. What do you think about that situation, Greeny?
As in, you mean asking Perez to pull over?
Yeah, exactly.
You mean Verstappen?
Verstappen saying.
I mean, there was two teams involved in that. Obviously, you've got Ferrari, you've got Leclerc begging, begging his team to let him through, and you've got Verstappen being told to let Perez go through. Neither happened. But I'm not that surprised, and it's not really. I mean, over second place, third place. I know it's important to the drivers, but it's not a world championship. So does it matter? I don't think so.
Ask Checo.
Yeah, no. I mean, but Checo wasn't saying anything. It was Leclerc begging the team.
Yeah.
And the inter-rivalry or the inter-sort of dialogue between Ferrari continues to dumbfound me. Dumbfound me, that one too. I feel like I'm in the team. But no, they don't communicate well at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like Verstappen and his side of the garage were trying to convince everybody he could do Perez good in the championship by going past Perez and picking off Alonso. And Leclerc.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was ever on. I don't think Verstappen ever had that kind of speed over what? He had 5 laps to try to do it. I'm not buying it. I think they just kind of punted Checo to the curb again.
Yeah, I do too. The pace that Max was making, passing those that are back of the grid folks might have given him the false sense of security that he could continue this. But we all know you do that early when you're somebody like Max or anybody else from the front of the grid passing those that are way in the back. You're going to click them off like, Tic Tacs, and then you'll get all the way to the front. So that's, I'm not going to say he could do any better than he really did, even if Perez gave him that one spot.
The one thing that makes
that's just where he is.
Yeah, what makes it really interesting, and you can understand why Leclerc was desperate, is that now there's 1 point between him and Perez going into the final race.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Nice.
And that changes it, because then it does become a game of can we get our guy to stay in second?
Yeah.
Because a Red Bull 1-2, which would be the other alternative, would really give them domination of the whole season.
Yep. In the words of Bruce Jenkins from Facebook, what a race.
Yeah, I like that. Big points for Alpine. So 10 points for Alonso, 4 points for Ocon. So that's 14 ahead of McLaren plus the 5. So they're 19 points. I don't think McLaren can catch them.
I don't think so
I think that would have to be, that's an impossible weekend next weekend for McLaren. So that's a huge weekend for Alpine. And we heard Otmar at the beginning on the pre-race show. He sounded as confident as ever. His car's starting 16 and 17 or 15 and 16, and Chris asked him, where are you going to be? And he's immediately said, in the points. And man, those cars looked fast today, didn't they?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Hey, and the other story, obviously looking to Abu Dhabi, 1 point between HAAS and AlphaTauri. And that's going to be hard for HAAS to hold them back.
Yeah. I
Could
don't know.
The point that Schumacher gets to keep his drive.
Well, that's the other question. Well, okay, let's ask the team manager. I'll put your old shirt back on. Gunter's on the line. Should we keep him or go with Hülkenberg?
Well, I think he's probably made his decision by that point, but it would definitely, it's definitely an influence, isn't it? Getting that point, it's huge money in the championship.
Sure.
And for sure worth having. But
I mean, I would have fucked the whole paddock.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Gunter. See?
So, Dave, really, in your opinion, who would you take?
What you mean next?
Next year.
Would you keep Schumacher? Go Hülkenberg.
Schumacher, Hülkenberg.
I think current experience, racecraft, knowledge. I'd probably end up choosing Schumacher if he could just eliminate those few small mistakes he makes now and again. It's hard to come back, a couple of years out of a car. I think it's hard to come back, but I'm not making that decision.
No, but I think I agree with you. I think he's holding his own against a very resurgent Magnussen, who's on his game. He is young. He's only 2 years into the game. Hülkenberg is good, but 35, what's the investment?
I'm surprised they haven't tested Hülkenberg, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
they put him in the car. Has he shown the speed? Is he still the same old Hulk? I don't know.
The man who's never won anything except Le Mans.
Yeah.
We got a couple of comments. These are coming off YouTube. Kevin Kelly says he should have let Perez through, talking about Verstappen. And TW says Ricardo's fault for sure. Bad teamwork. Dixon Smith says really bad teamwork from Verstappen. Andy P, that Red Bull Racing second seat is the total double-edged sword. You get a car capable of winning a GP, you have to deal with a completely unyielding teammate. Yep.
Yeah, true.
And Evan Rudolph says a nice comment. Says this broadcast is much better and less biased than Sky Sports. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we like Red Bull.
Brilliant. Do we have a new sponsor? Is that what you're saying?
Hold on. Yeah, we're not accepting trade this time. We do not need 7 cases of Red Bull in this studio.
Well, let me just run down where we ended up today. So, look, let's pause here. A 1-2 for Mercedes. I've been saying since about week 4, okay, Mercedes is coming. And finally, we get a 1-2 of Mercedes.
Well, Russell said yesterday that the last sprint race he can remember, Imola, They were 8th and 10th. And he said that, it was on the Checkered Flag show. He said it shows what the team has done in that time between Imola and now, that they are now a front-running team legitimately.
So Mercedes, and then Ferrari, Sainz and Leclerc, then Alonso, Verstappen, Perez, Ocon, Bottas. Lance Stroll ended up in 10th. We were about to put him on the grill and fry him in the pre-show.
I was about to say, he didn't hit anybody. That's a plus.
Yeah, he didn't run anybody off the track or hit anybody. Vettel, unfortunately, out of the points in 11th. Zhou Guanyu, 12th. Mick Schumacher kind of hung around that 13th spot all day. Gasly, Albon, Latifi, Tsunoda, and then, of course, Norris, Magnussen, Ricciardo out.
Yeah, just on the Schumacher thing, we just discussed whether we'd keep him or not. I think on today's result alone, this weekend, he's driven a blinder. Starting at the back yesterday to 12th position. 12th positions. At one point, he was running 7th, I think. And, he's done a fairly handy job today. You can't knock the guy. He's fast in a car that isn't that competitive.
He's about 3 corners away from it being a clear keep him. In other words, the 3 crashes that he had.
Yeah.
Had he not had those 3 crashes and cost Mr. Haas many millions of dollars, I think that would have been an easy decision, honestly, if he had not had those crashes.
Yeah, and I really do think we've got away from judging him by the name. He
I think so too. Yeah.
He's a bona fide Formula One driver. No, is he his dad? No. But has he got potential that he's shown in the lower rankings? Absolutely. And if I remember Mick's career, and he hasn't come the sort of standard way through, he even went off to Asia at one point. But it's always been 1 year learn, 1 year good. 1 year learn, 1 year good. And I know he's been in Formula One 2 years, but I don't even count the first year he was in Formula One because they had a dud. They didn't have a car that was capable of anything.
Yeah.
Would you say all of that for Lance Stroll?
As in, am I comparing Lance Stroll to Schumacher?
Sure. All the favors that he's had offered because of who he is.
Stroll's a different. No, I think Stroll. I'm giving.
I like
Stroll,
that he's stuttering.
Well, hang on. I know I'm giving Stroll a hard time now because he is a bona fide Grand Prix driver of many years and is making absolute schoolboy errors, as he did at Austin with Alonso and as he did with Vettel in the sprint race. That's what's my beef with Stroll, is that he's making mistakes that he shouldn't be making. I mean, go back to Japan and look at that start he made. I mean, you'd think he was Senna. But then he does that at Austin, and I kind of lost a little bit of respect for him. And I think both Alonso and Vettel aren't particular big fans of his.
All right, I put you on the spot, but I agree with your sentiments there. I think he bought his way in. Daddy bought his way in. He got in there. He ought to be better than he is, and he's pulling out green rookie mistakes.
I really do think Aston Martin. I'm going to make myself the head of Aston Martin Watch next year because I think that's just going to be in and out of the garage, on and off the track, going to be fascinating. How Alonso either gels that team into a winning team, or it becomes fisticuffs, and Dad and Lance and Lawrence and Fernando are going to have a trifecta that's never going to work.
I'm anxious for this year's Drive to Survive.
Yeah. I have not asked Bob Varsha what he thinks about the Schumacher-Hulkenberg situation. What do you think, Bob?
Well, I'm starting to lean toward Mick. I think maybe he needs another year or two to see what he can do. I would love to see what Hulkenberg can do in the car because, as I said before, I'm not aware that he's tested. I'm sure he's, kept fit and that sort of thing in case anybody needs him. Before Nick DeVries took his job as the super sub.
Yeah.
But right now, I think Mick has begun to show that he's getting more out of his talent. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, everybody has a different level of talent. Formula One is as tough as it gets. And some guys just aren't up to it, which is no discredit to them. I mean, they can race in lots of other series and have hellacious careers, but this is supposed to be the best of the best, and It's not a finishing school. You've got to arrive fully formed. Having said that, it is so different from anything else any of the guys have done. Even if they come up through the junior formula, these cars are more than twice as powerful as the F2 cars. They're much heavier. They go, they turn, they stop better than anything any of these guys have ever driven. So given the lack of testing that the teams get by rule, I think it's unfair not to give the young guys more time to show what they can do in the cars. Simulators will do a lot, but they won't do it all. You've got to get in the car and wake up with a sore neck the next day after some testing. And until we have that, we risk cutting off some guys before they reach full flower, as it were.
Yeah, and let's not forget
and I
that.
think Schumacher may be one of those guys.
Yeah, and let's not forget Hulkenberg's 35. He's.
I mean, I still don't know why Pietro Fittipaldi is not part of this conversation.
Thank you. I said that on the Wednesday show.
I know you did.
I was like, I want him to be a part of this.
Yeah, and I do too, and I think he deserves to. When he stepped into the car as he did, he held his own. We're going to see him in Abu Dhabi. He's had some Friday drives. He's there in the pits all the time. He's part of the culture there. Again, I'd like to bring Dave O'Neill and see his thoughts on having a guy that knows your systems, knows how everything works, and you're not going to give him a run?
Yeah, Pietro.
What do you think, Dave?
Well, I think there must be a little bit more to it. Maybe he just, maybe he's a couple of tenths off, and he's a safe pair of hands just to get in and cover off, if you like. I think the important bit for next year is having someone who can match the points as Kevin started off the season with, and then you wouldn't be having this fight at the end of the year for the last race for a championship position, which is really important. That's what builds a brand, builds a team. So you're looking for two equals who can get on. And I honestly don't know how Kevin and Hulkenberg will get on. They've not been great in the past. And someone like Mick can learn off Kevin. He's respectful, and maybe he can just puzzle himself into being the point scorer with Kevin. Is what you're after, really. But yeah, I don't know why Fittipaldi hasn't been there. He just hasn't maybe quite got it, a tenth or two off, and that's as simple as that.
All right, well, let's get a break in. We got some really good comments coming on social media. I want to get to those after the break. And we'll also have Chris Medland going to be bringing us some live updates from SãO Paulo after this. You're listening to Speed City. Back after these messages.
I think
we're live on YouTube.
The interesting one would be what if Carlos Sainz didn't have to do that extra stop with the rip-off visor in his brake duct.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
I honestly think he would have split the Mercedes.
Do you have a guy with rubber hands that does that job? I mean, how the hell do you put your hand in a brake duct?
Well, he was very quick, wasn't he? I mean, if they got that wrong, his hand would have been part of the of the wheel and brake duct.
Then you do need the Hulk.
Super quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, I want to ask you
the pit lane.
about the fire. I think it was who was it early on in it? The brake caught fire. Was it Sainz, I think? And he immediately
Sainz had heavy smoke. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it was very heavy. Is it the brake material, like the pads material, or is it the carbon disc? What's on fire?
What goes on fire?
The carbon's overheating, so that it's a solid piece of carbon, really.
Yeah.
So what happens is overheating, and the worrying part there is the degradation of the carbon disc. If it gets that hot, it kind of goes soft, and then you get exponential wear in the disc. So that was the bit I was worried about for Sainz, but they managed. It must have been pretty quick, and they reacted again. Hats off to Ferrari. They reacted pretty quick, got him in, and changed the strategy before they had a brake disc explode.
By the way, the Hulkenberg Schumacher thing also has a German factor to it, in that both those two names have been mentioned as potential reserve drivers for Mercedes. And I can totally see Schumacher getting an opportunity to be reserve driver at the top team in the world, if not the second top team. And there'll be no German Grand Prix and no Germans involved in F1. Capito made that point the other day. So with Audi coming back on board, just having a German young guy ready to go.
Yeah.
I think Ralph also mentioned that, Sauber
Here we
would
go.
be a good place for
Hello to
Mick as
everyone.
well.
This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, we're going to see if Chris Medland can get us some interviews. Still waiting on him, but the racing today was fantastic. By the way, this one was I want to see the television ratings because it was on ABC this time, too.
That's a good point.
Right.
And I never did see the USGP ratings. I got to go look those up.
not,
I like to
did
keep
not.
track of those.
Hey, I saw something I will dare call a Michael Massey moment.
What's that?
During the safety car, it seemed forever. It was lap 53 to lap 60 was
It
the
did take a long
combined-
time.
Yeah, it was the combined time of the safety car. That's a lot of laps. But then right at the end, Max comes up and he says, why aren't we gone? Why aren't we going yet? And the reason was they had not unlapped the last couple of cars. There were 2 cars
Right.
that were
Mhm.
left
Didn't
to
do the wave
unlap.
by.
Well, to be honest, I don't think there would have been any objection. I think it would have been more efficient, and we would have got a couple more race laps had we taken what's usually 1 to 2 laps to unlap cars and just said, hey, on the opposite side of the track, opposite end of the track, unlap yourself over there, still maintain yellow flag pace, around the sector, the 2 sectors that actually were impacted by that. So I can see, I thought it was a little ironic that Max is the one asking about it. Maybe wishes Michael Maxey was still sitting in the seat. Oh yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, I see Chris has joined us, but before we go to Chris, I'm going to read a couple of social comments. There's some good ones. Dixon Smith says, next year Alpine is going to be insane. Ocon is going to race Gasly 10/10 all the way through.
Yep. Agreed.
Wesman says, anybody notice? Did anybody notice that Gasly got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, but isn't going to be given points on his license?
Ooh.
And
Well, he got brought up to
That
the
happens.
stewards. He brought it to the stewards last night. Was it for speeding in the pit lane?
I think that's what I think.
I thought it was because he was going too slow at a restart.
No,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, it was. No, it was big. Yeah, he went too slow on the formation lap
there you
for
go.
the sprint qualifier.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
They don't call guys up for speeding in the pit lane. You don't go see the stewards. You're either over or
Oh, you're
under.
under. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
There's
speeding
your
on the
phone.
So
highway.
it was too slow, and he was reprimanded for it, which is the normal
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
We
let's
don't
check
wanna
in
hear
with
why.
Chris Medland at SãO Paulo. Hey, Chris, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty well, thanks, guys. I don't know if you can hear me very well because
We got you.
it's rammed here in the paddock and the signal isn't great. But I'm stood outside Red Bull, which is fascinating.
Huh.
I've been watching Christian Horner and Helmut Marko for about the last 5 or 10 minutes, having a pretty public row with Max Verstappen's manager Raymond. It looks like it's starting to calm down now. In fact, quite funnily, Helmut Marko just got himself an ice cream, so it's definitely cooled down, literally. But yeah, Max was in there for a while. They'd been in driver rooms. Checo had been in there for some sort of meeting as well. But Max joined them all probably about 5 minutes ago, and there were some pretty animated discussions going on. Christian especially gesturing wildly. So I do not think, sorry, I don't know if you guys have spoken about it yet, but I do not think it's happy families at Red Bull right now.
Well, my question to you is, Chris, what do you think of that? I've just been posed that question of both Ferrari's decisions and Red Bull's decisions to not, or for the drivers not to let the other drivers through.
Yeah, I think this one's going to really come back to bite Max. I don't think it was the time to do it. It sounded like from the team radio we heard at the end of the race, which I'm not sure if it was played out to everyone listening, but the team radio suggested that he's told the team in the past he wouldn't give up positions and they shouldn't ask him to do that. But I mean, we're talking about 6th and 7th in this race.
Yeah.
This wasn't a podium or a win. Max is the world champion. He'd got himself a penalty, which I'm sure he was annoyed about because that was close one. That could have gone either way. But I think the fact that he really, he didn't have a lot to gain by just following Alonso over the line when the team's asked him to do that. And don't forget some of the things that Checo's done for him in the past. His performance specifically in Abu Dhabi last year, and the way he fought for Verstappen.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
this would have been a tiny bit of payback.
Yeah, I think Perez is going to have a long memory, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, big time. I mean, Checo's just gone back in now to the Red Bull hospitality. He's not chatting to Horner and Marco, actually. That's still going on with Max's manager, and it's still pretty animated. But yeah, he does not look happy, Checo. And he probably already knew his place in the team in some senses.
Sure.
But when your teammate does that to you, that's not cool.
Nose rubbing in, yeah.
Well, like you said, he's going to have a long memory. Max is going to need him. He's needed him several times. So
yeah, the team is going to need him.
Yep.
Absolutely. Think of today. What's today shown? Mercedes can come back. Mercedes have got performance. Okay, they've been pushing development a bit more this year than the others, but next year could well be at least a Mercedes Red Bull fight, if not a 3-team fight. And Max will need more help from his teammate in those situations. And today, needlessly, has kind of lit a bit of a fire that didn't need lighting.
Well, it's simple. Just dock him $7 million on his pay, and that equals out your trouble you were in before.
Yeah, put him in the next. Put it in the next contract. You know, you also saw, just in case you think this is exclusively Max's problem, Esteban Ocon being told, "Do not get anywhere close to Fernando Alonso when they come by. Concentrate on Vettel ahead on the road." And Ocon was saying, "Just let me race. Just let me race."
Yeah, that was during that
He
long.
was kind of making it clear he was not going to let Alonso go by. So I think there's some unhappy campers up and down the pit lane after this one.
What about Leclerc and Sainz? Leclerc basically begging in the last few laps.
Yeah,
very, very true. You mentioned Ocon and Alonso. I did actually manage to grab a word on Szafnauer, and phone signal permitting, it's trying to fire its way over to you guys right now. So hopefully soon on the show we can hear what Otmar had to say about the way things panned out and the way Ocon handled things. In the end, I did feel that Ocon was being a little bit robust with his responses, but he actually called it and played it very well, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did make the move immediately, and then he let Alonso through later in the lap. So it came together, but it could have gone so much worse, and they didn't need another incident between those two, because you can bet your bottom dollar that Alonso was coming through whether Ocon let him or not.
Yeah, and you've got to think, if you're Ocon, are you going to be leading this team next year, or are you going to play second fiddle to the other Frenchman?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, like you said, Chris, we're all saying here in the studio, Alonso's coming through. And do we want a pile of Alpine cars on the side of the road, or do we
BWT pink everywhere?
Or do we want to have some team orders here? Andy P on YouTube says the more messy moment was not letting Tsunoda get his lap back. He should have been allowed to overtake, but was never allowed to. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, that was an absolute shambles. The race control message came up that lap cars can overtake, and it was cars 23 and 6, which was Albon and Latifi, and it didn't include Tsunoda, who was in between the two of them. It was just an absolute shambles on that front. So
they're not getting any better, are they?
No.
And
this is shades of Suzuka, where they didn't see Gasly pitting under the yellow.
Never happens when Tim Mayer's in charge. Just a point.
Tim Mayer was in charge this weekend.
Oops.
Yeah, he was.
Sorry, Tim.
Well, he was in charge of the stewards. He was not race control. He was in charge of the stewards, and Derek Warwick was the driver steward.
Del boy.
I mean, they had a lot of expertise in that stewards room.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but it wasn't their call, because they can't make a call unless race control refers something.
That's true.
To them.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, we've got your interview with Otmar, so let's hear that right now.
Otmar, we spoke on the grid. The words you gave to your team, your drivers, must have really been ringing in their ears, because what a performance.
Yeah, they kept it clean first and foremost, which meant they were able to finish. We knew we had a strong car from the performance that Fernando showed yesterday. Esteban had a damaged car, so we couldn't tell, but we knew the car was quick, and we just needed to get some clean laps in, get him in free air, and then we got a bit lucky with the safety car bunching everyone up, but we had to be in that position, and we were.
Before that safety car, where did you think you were going to end up? Because it looked like from the outside a perfectly executed race from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we thought we could finish as high as 7th if all else went as normal. It looks like now, looking back at it, I think we beat Sergio on pace. Yes, the safety car helped, and I think he was at on the medium at the end. We're on the soft, but we had much better pace on him at the end.
Are you surprised by how quick the car was this weekend? Because like you say, we didn't get to fully see it yesterday.
I was more surprised on Saturday than I am today, but we knew we had a quick car here.
And just a word for Esteban as well, there's a moment there where team orders were kind of used and he seemed to execute it perfectly, getting Seb and then letting Fernando go.
Yeah, I mean, Fernando was A, on a new set of softs, and B, much younger than Esteban, so it made sense. They're on a different strategy, so Fernando was always on a three-stop strategy. We told him at the beginning if towards the end, because of the different strategy, we had to swap places. That's what we were going to do, and it worked out just as we thought.
And can you sleep comfortably now with P4 just about secure, or are you still nervous ahead of the last round?
I'm less nervous.
Good answer. Thanks.
This is at 19 points, I think. Let's see if it's I'm gonna refresh.
Ooh, now you're asking. I'll admit I was trying to do the points gap between Mercedes and Ferrari, which I believe is 17. So I didn't get as far down as McLaren and Alpine before I had to run here, but
hey, I got the math.
They were.
I got the math right. It's 19.
Yeah.
There you go. So I mean, that's a big one to try and overturn in one go.
Yeah,
when you're two teams that aren't at the front.
Yeah, that's not impossible, but close at this point.
5 between Aston and Alpha, and 1 between Haas and AlphaTauri.
I showed 2.
2, excuse me.
Yeah,
2.
okay, yeah. But still, I mean, wow. I mean, that's the scale is just about right there, isn't it, for Haas and AlphaTauri at 2 points? They got a lot. That could easily come down to it. We definitely hope our Haas boys will cover that one. All right, well, gentlemen, let's go ahead and squeeze a break in, and we'll send Chris back out, see if he can get anything, and we'll continue our discussion after the break. All right, we're still live on the YouTube. Jonathan run into the little boys' room. Somebody, who was it? Macau. Here it is. Ray says the next race will have more action than Macau. I don't know about that, Ray. I hope you're right, and you may be right. I want Jonathan here for the Macau discussion because he's Mr. Macau. And then Ray says, I'm all in favor for Macau. Hey, Greenie, you're back. I thought you had to go to the restroom. But anyway, Ray on YouTube says the next race will have more action than Macau. Can't wait.
Inconceivable.
And then he says, I'm in favor for Macau to be the last race of the F1 season.
They can't get round the Melco,
They had
sadly.
less wreckage than Macau.
We had one Formula One car perform. It was a Jordan.
That was the Jordan.
Yes, and you were there. Yeah, by the way, yeah, that's where I first met Mr. O'Neill. He doesn't remember me, and I don't remember him.
The ice cream van air conditioning was leaking down onto the circuit at the hairpin.
That's right.
And Ralph Furman spun.
Yes, he did. But didn't you change his wheel lock so he could get round?
Yes, yeah, we put a special rack in it. To be
Change from his Formula One rack.
Yeah.
So he could actually turn.
A couple other comments. The Turn 4 podcast says poor form by Max for that refusal. Childish. I think that's kind of becoming the consensus, it feels like right now.
What? Verstappen childish?
Yeah, that Verstappen made a mistake here.
It's not a smart move. You've got to be gracious as a sportsman because it does bite you.
I mean, and at this point especially, what has he got to lose?
Yeah, he's already won the world title. Yeah, throw him a bone. Man.
Yeah, exactly.
He said in the radio transmission, he said, I've already stated my reasons and I stand by them. I didn't hear what his reasons were.
I'm Max Verstappen and I'm the champion. Drop mic.
Was that it? Or?
No, I don't know. I don't know what
Here we go.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back. Chris is still out there in Sao Paulo. He's muted right now, but hopefully he is getting some interviews for us. Jonathan, a question for you on YouTube. Is Jonathan going to Macau this year?
Is not. It is still an F4 race. Chinese F4 race. So, no. And they've also had a huge outbreak in Guangzhou of COVID again, which is just across the way from Macau. So, no, not on my list this year.
But it's not because of that necessarily. It's just mostly there's not the opportunity. So there's a lot of stories that. What else about the race? Because we have a bunch of other things that I want to touch on. In fact, before we do that, let me get a word in from our sponsor here. My producer is staring at me. It's CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected; it's interdependent, and because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. Let's just look at the finishing order today. But any other stories jump out at anyone right now about today's race? I mean, there was plenty going on all race long. I mean, we had a break in there, and it was perfect timing because our pizza arrived. But
we won't say what kind yet.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on.
But Papa John's, if you're listening.
But yeah, let's see.
Could have had the decency to send one to me, but
I know we always forget about
a nationwide, race day pizza sponsor.
Well, let's talk about Lance Stroll. He finished today 10th, but we already did, didn't we? We talked about how he had some struggles that nobody appreciated.
The penalties that went out. We had Max with a 5-second penalty over the lap 7 incident he had with Hamilton. First it started out, it was just noted, and then they came back and gave it a 5-second penalty. Norris had 5 seconds with his Leclerc encounter out of that. And both of those, I feel like there's enough argument material between the both of those to it, because honestly, I thought the Max Hamilton thing was a racing incident myself.
Chris, he texted me and says, I can give an update on that, but I can't remember what I was asking him about.
We were asking if there were any stronger rumors about the HAAS second seat. We know that's to be announced within about a week's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see Chris is still muted. Maybe he's getting an interview right now, so we'll let him.
What happened with the Alfa Romeo investigation they were going to do after the race? Has anyone heard?
I've not seen anything come through on that.
What were they investigating?
Well, I think it was a pit lane incident, so I think they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Out the way.
The Schumacher.
It was suggested that the mechanics didn't pull the air gun hoses out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't hear any more about it.
Yeah,
sorry for the silence there. I am fighting my way between both Mercedes and Red Bull, trying to see. There's storylines at both teams that we desperately want, aren't there? So trying to get to speak to people here. But I'll start with the second topic. The Alfa Romeo one was that there was a team member potentially in a dangerous position when Schumacher made his pit stop. So that's still being looked at. I haven't seen anything come in terms of a decision on that front, but I'll keep an eye out on the inbox for that. And then when it comes to HAAS, I'm thinking that Gunther's comments are pretty firm with probably Thursday that we'll get a decision or an announcement. A decision's clearly been made. It doesn't take too much of 2+2ing to go. If you were keeping Mick, you'd have told him, you'd have announced it.
Right.
You wouldn't have left it looking like it's putting pressure on him unfairly. So I think it's more a case of there's going to be a change there, and Nico Hulkenberg's going to come in. So, that's not yet confirmed, but it doesn't.
And would that give Schumacher a chance at a Mercedes reserve driver?
Oh, you're spot on the money there, Johnny Green. That's certainly what I've heard. That would be something that he's in talks over. So,
because I read articles.
So, that's the likely outcome, which also then comes together in terms of Daniel Ricciardo potentially ending up as an option for Red Bull. they're going to have potentially a few reserve drivers next year. So, Ricciardo could end up as one of those options too, because as he said, he doesn't really want to be just tied down to going to all 24 races and sitting in the simulator 24/7 and not getting time to go and work on his own personal fitness, work on other outside interests, get a bit of a break from the sport to come back refreshed in 24. So I think, I think actually it's looking more like, maybe you might see the Schumacher name heading to Mercedes again, and Ricciardo more likely of the two options to end up back at his old team, Red Bull.
Yeah, interesting. While we're on that subject, shout out to Enzo Fittipaldi for getting a call from Marco, Helmut Marco, to get onto the Red Bull. I don't know if it's a poison chalice or not, but
best of luck.
Best of luck. You're now one of many Red Bulls, little bulls.
Yeah,
but no, that's good. Enzo's being noticed for what he's also achieving. So
I think we also need to acknowledge the passing this week of Mauro Forghieri, who spent an incredible 27 years as the overall technical director for Ferrari Racing. And that means the Formula One cars, the prototypes and endurance, GT action, you name it. I met the man about 5 years ago at the Amelia Island Concours, where he was honored. Just a wonderful guy to talk to, a brilliant memory. I mean, he remembers all kinds of stuff. He had so many great stories. I hope he somehow got them committed to some sort of archive before he passed. I mean, this guy took over Ferrari at age 26.
Wow.
When Enzo, the man himself, said, I can't do this job. I don't have enough experience. And Enzo said, you just go ahead and make your decisions and leave the rest up to me. And that's the way it was for the next 3 decades. And he was a great man and a great racing figure.
And hugely successful, like you're saying.
I
mean, Ferrari wouldn't be Ferrari, would they?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
well, for all their faults, Ferrari seems to have this ability to pick young guys and put them in positions of responsibility. I mean, Forghieri was one. And then Luca Di Marzemolo was a very young man. When he was put in charge of the Formula One team, he wound up being the chairman of the company. So they do okay sometimes.
Well, I have, Jonathan, you said that I was going to run out of superlatives for the race today. Well, if Casey, our producer, will bring up the tweet that I found from Formula One, it shows the lap charts, and it says that period was nuts. And if you look at the crisscrossing of lines of all the lap charts, it looks like somebody, like a 10-year-old crazy with a crayon, because it is all over the board. And I mean, let's face it, that was a great lap. I mean, great race. It was fantastic at the beginning. Like I said, it was slow, but there was a ton going on. So let's be excited for that. And I think the proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah, I think that was the general feeling up the pit lane. Somebody said, let's just have 24 races here and be done with it.
Yeah. Hey, Chris Medland, what's going on out there? Are you interviewing someone? I see you're muted. Are you around? I think he must have a microphone in somebody's face. Let's see.
I'm waiting to do exactly that, actually. I'm in the middle of a very tight scrum of TV crews before we speak to Christian Horner, so try not to ruin anyone else's show while I'm stood here. It's the hushed voice.
I tell you what, let's take this moment to talk about the crypto FTX debacle that happened, because Mercedes, I think it was Thursday afternoon, Mercedes said, we're not going to take the sticker off the car. We're going to let these guys try to figure things out. We're going to leave it on for the weekend. And then we wake up on Friday morning and they said, we're going to pull the sticker off the car.
Yeah, we ripped the Band-Aid off.
Because FTX, I mean, we talked about this in our pre-production call about crypto in general, that it's, but FTX looks like the guy may have done some bad things, the CEO.
I think that's what it was, yeah. As soon as somebody started talking about criminal activity, Mercedes said, we're out of here.
Yeah.
Well, and not just them, but a lot of other people.
Well, and then the HAAS, of course, with OpenSea, they announced their new sponsor, OpenSea, which is an NFT platform where you can buy and sell NFTs, which have the same backbone in blockchain as crypto, which means that it's not green because to mine a single coin of any kind takes gazillion watts or whatever, and it's the same thing going on there. And HAAS was getting a little bit of grief for that. I feel like I don't know that one's. I guess that's if you're really getting down to the nth of it, that is not a good thing.
Oh yeah,
but
I follow a guy that does it using solar system, and he's got his whole mining operation in the mountains where it's cooler. So all of this is done. And
yeah, I've read that about because that's a big part of crypto is the data centers with all these air
Sorry
conditioners.
to interrupt,
running.
chaps,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I've finally got Christian Horner in front of me. And Christian, sorry to be that guy, but I was watching through the window and it looks pretty animated at times in the meetings you guys were having. Just what's been spoken about since the end of that race?
Look, I mean, what's been discussed is a bit behind closed doors. The drivers have discussed it, and we're all very clear going into Abu Dhabi as a team to do our best that we can for Checo to finish second in the championship. So that's the goal. That's the objective.
Max said that he wouldn't respond to team orders or not to ask him that over team radio at the end of the race. Why is that?
Well, it's something that we've discussed behind closed doors. So as I say, going into Abu Dhabi, it's very clear as a team we'll be doing our very best.
But from your point of view, it must be disappointing because you've had an epic season and here we are, one race in the end, and we're talking about a team orders route.
Yeah, I think Ferrari have probably got a bigger one to deal with.
Well, it's very true. And just finally, you say going into that race, are you confident that your drivers will respond the way you want them to in that final round?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Christian.
Very well and diplomatically, Britishly put.
Yeah, but did you hear how quickly Christian Horner responded to that? I mean, clearly Max is in the doghouse. To me, it sounds like even with Christian and Marco.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Chris?
Yes. The discussions I saw going on, which is why they try and lead with it to say, this was clear. They've massive glass-fronted motorhome units here. So you might say behind closed doors. A, the doors were open for starters, but B, not behind solid walls. So you could see they were very, very unhappy. And this was all gesticulating at Max's manager. There was no one from Perez's team involved in this that I was watching. So I think it's pretty clear that it's with Max that the beef is. And as we said, maybe it's entirely unnecessary. And perhaps, Christian not willing to talk about it there, but maybe by the end of a journey across to Abu Dhabi and when the dust settles a little, he'll explain more. But perhaps they were feeling that they'd discuss this with Max and would get a different outcome at this time of the year with the titles done. Who knows? But I don't think Max is going to come off particularly well, both within his own team and kind of in the wider court of public opinion, the way today's gone.
Boy, I tell you what, the plot thickens coming into this next race. The season finale with Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez tied on points. What are you going to do?
Ooh.
And if you're not sure your drivers are going to listen, what are you going to do?
I managed it in the pit lane. Whoops, that wheel didn't come all the way.
Oh, Les Kaiser, don't you say that.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed that Christian Horner let that argument play out where people could see it.
Yeah.
And even over here. I'm surprised they didn't go into the back room or wait till we're on the plane or whatever.
Yeah. Good point.
I wonder if that was a bit of a ploy, actually, from Verstappen's manager. Because he stood there in the middle of the motorhome and he's kind of saying, go on then, if you want to have a go, you're going to have to do it here. It looked like Christian was willing to, but there's been a little bit of tension around that team over the past few weeks, hasn't there? We spoke about the Sky boycott, where some suggestions were that Verstappen and his team weren't happy that the narrative around both World Championships have been about potential wrongdoing. They haven't been fully positive stories. So if that is true, then what Red Bull did was probably to try and appease Verstappen in terms of that boycott, and they certainly haven't appeased him today.
Okay, well, coming up after this, we're going to talk about the influx of American sponsors into the sport, and we'll also see what else Chris can drum up for us. But stick with us, and we'll be back after these messages. I love that take, Chris. By the way, Chris, we're still live on YouTube. Casey has a whole new digital board in the producer's room that he is toying with. So we're still live on YouTube. But I love that take that it was done on purpose in front of the glass.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've seen that where Yeah, they go in, they purposely make sure the door is closed and deadbolted practically.
Yeah.
Folks standing
What's
outside.
who is Max's manager? I thought his dad was calling his shots.
I don't know.
No, his manager's name is Raymond Vermeulen. So yeah, his dad is heavily
I've heard
involved,
that before.
but Raymond is his manager.
Well, everybody loves Ray.
Raymond the what?
Raymond Vermeulen.
Vermeulen.
Oh, Vermeulen.
V-E-R-M-U. Yeah.
I thought he was.
And
I've
I'll
heard
admit,
that name
I thought he
before.
was Italian. Raymond the no.
no, I'll admit I had to.
Oh, yeah.
I know his first name certainly, but his surname I wasn't certain on because I couldn't get it up on my phone at the time that I was introducing him. He was only known as Raymond when I said that they were in the motorhome. But yeah, Raymond Vermeulen.
Hey, Casey, I'm going to try to send you an email that's got a really cool graphic about American sponsors. What's that guy's name? Bjorn.
Raymond.
Bjorn, here he is.
Vermeulen, a name from somewhere, the city in Holland that is famous. Chris Vermeulen.
Casey, somebody on YouTube commented, said, Ray said, love all the different camera shots from the studio. That's for you, Casey. And somebody asked, who is the guy behind the glass a while ago? I saw that earlier, maybe in the pre-show.
Casey.
That's a cardboard cutout of
Yeah.
Casey.
Why is that guy in the blue shirt never says anything?
Yeah, that's the wizard.
The wizard, yeah.
Don't go behind the wall.
Here we go.
They just don't get to hear what he says to us.
Yeah. He's yelling at us, everyone. He's our mother.
It's a fourth window they've replaced.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1
go.
on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back. There you go, Casey. Give yourself a good shot there. I like that.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to who?
Gene Haas.
Oh, that was
Gene
him coming
Haas.
back in. Yeah, it was 70th
70.
birthday. Yeah.
A child, a mere child.
70 is the new, what?
80.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
It means you were born in the 60s.
The Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, Chris, I've got a couple things I want to talk about. Unless you're standing by with someone ready for an interview, I will go into it.
No, have at it. I am running to the other end of the paddock because I spent far too long standing outside Red Bull, and there were other stories, weren't there, today? So I'll see who else is around at the far end.
Well, Jonathan, this is what I want to talk about. It kind of really stems from what you originally wanted to talk about, all the sponsors pouring into F1. And we'll start with the first graphic, Casey. It's the one that shows the number of U.S. partners in Formula One back in 2018 as compared to now. In 2018, we had 44 American partners / sponsors, what do you want to call them, in Formula One. And in 2022, we're up to 105. And that was as of October 20th. So I think that was right after HAAS added OpenSea. So I think this may be up to date. I don't think there's any more than the last week or two here.
I need to get
But
that up.
that's I mean, really, I bet if you overlaid the numbers we've seen out of ESPN's television coverage and SiriusXM's radio coverage, I bet you this would overlay very similarly to the viewership, because 44 to 105, that is a massive increase. And Jonathan, you were talking about how Ferrari had been one of the teams that had taken advantage of that, right?
Yeah, Ferrari particularly, surprisingly not Haas. McLaren also,
Second
although
graphic,
that
Casey.
doesn't surprise me as much because obviously Zach Brown's
Zach Brown.
company is a sponsorship company.
Yeah, that's what they
so
do.
That's basically what they've been striving to do for the last 20 years. So no surprise to see them leading the way. But it is, I think I'm just going to look for the factor I wanted to draw people's attention to was 161 deals between US sponsors and F1 teams in 2022.
Wow. Okay.
161 deals. Now, some of them can be big, like Duracell, let's say, and some of them can be tiny. They can be hospitality or a brake pad manufacturer, for all I know. But
Could be Could be race to race too.
Yes, and you've got obviously Red Bull's title sponsor is Oracle, and Google now a big part of it. You know, and I just think that the blue chips, it's the one thing that is always lacked in America, and why Formula One, and Bob will back me up here because we've been through it, where America was, you know, it was a dirty word because Formula One wasn't a world championship because it really wasn't in America. Now with 3 races next year, there's no doubting about that. But more importantly, the blue chips that have been around Formula One for a long time are suddenly starting. And I wouldn't be surprised if a Walmart, if a Target, if some of the real household names of America suddenly start to sort of, you know, start to appear in Formula One, because if that number alone, for, you know, 161 deals, that's a lot of sponsorship deals.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask.
And it's go ahead.
I was going to ask Dave O'Neill about this. I mean, Dave, you were with HAAS at a pretty high level, team manager. I mean, these sponsor deals from American companies. I mean, were you guys seeing much activity from American companies back in the day, 14, 15, 16?
No, not really. And why? Not quite sure. I think, you know, maybe to what Jonathan just spoke about was now there's 3 races stateside. Obviously, Montreal was kind of the home race originally. But yeah, there wasn't much interest in it, and as it started growing, you know, speaking to the guys and girls still there, you know, it starts with the Paddock Club and people going and having a fantastic weekend there, and then you know, spreading it out from that point, and seeing how much, I guess, you can get involved in it, from, you know, having a meal at the circuit to putting a sticker on the car, to being a title sponsor, etc. And maybe, you know, maybe the sponsor that they had, the fake sponsor they had, maybe that created a good bit of interest as well, for people to be able to see how much coverage you get on your car and press. So, but yeah, I think it's good. You know, 160 is a lot, but also I think there's probably many more to come, with the interest. Certainly with Vegas, I was there last week for a meeting while they were doing the launch of the F1 race, and the town's buzzing from it.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Did you get to see any of the donuts on track?
Yeah, saw it. Saw a few of them. It kind of reminds me of when the cars went up through Leicester Square in London, and they had to block everything off, you know, from the amount of people that are on the streets watching it. So I guess if you're on level 2 rather than level 1, you're going to see and get a lot more exposure to the circuit. But I mean, it's pretty exciting to have that race there. I think it'll only do good for the sponsors.
Did you have any of your young guys with wrenches, so in case any of the guys hit the wall in their donuts? Because apparently Russell tapped the wall, and Hamilton almost did too.
Yeah. What were the odds of that?
Yeah. Nicely played.
I'll tell you one thing I will add to that footnote of why it's not really a surprise when you look back to 2016, 2017, why there wasn't. Formula One has had literally a lobotomy of change at the top of in the last sort of, I don't know, 4 years, because all those sponsorship guys that were in Formula One teams, you know, in the last 10 years were probably British based. I mean, let's face it, it's a Formula One sport is a British based thing with mostly British mechanics, engineers, and astrophysicists as well. But, you know, most of the boffins were British as well. Obviously, you've got Alpine, you've got Ferrari, but you know, the large amount of sponsorship will have come from a British base. Not to say that Britain isn't international, but it's not, you know, America is a market that, you know, is hard to tap into. And that's why you see McLaren leading the way with United Autosports. But I think that will change. And I think that the fact that we've got Otmar and that we've got Doralton Capleton, we've got HAAS, you know, we've got this American influence now. Stroll, you could include Stroll into that as well. I mean, you know, look at the Aston Martin. You know, there's,
well, he's Canadian, but okay.
Yes, but I mean, but my point is, it's a business acumen, as it were, that is very North American, and that goes for Otmar as well. I think that we're going to see more of it. I would argue now that half the teams have an American influence.
And we've seen it.
And I would point out while the viewership and the appreciation of Formula One here in North America has grown exponentially, the financial side of the business has been well known everywhere for a long time. I mean, if you saw the companies who bought into Formula One as an entity, pension funds, venture capital and private equity firms, we know about BlackRock and people like that.
Yeah.
I think the Texas Teachers
Association own half of Formula One, don't they?
Had a big, not a big chunk. They had a small chunk, but a lot of money in Formula One for a long time. So while we haven't appreciated the action on track, the ka-ching got a lot of people's attention many years ago, and they've been going to the bank, as it were.
Well, I also think the cost cap has made a big thing, because if you are a Darlton Capital and you're looking for return on ROI, return on investment, then you look at that cap and you go, okay, we're going to put out 150 million, 170 million per year, but our return, if we get 5th in the championship, is X. If we get 6th in the championship, it's X. So it's a much easier way to say, oh, wait, I can get my money back here in 2 years or in 1 year if I have 2 6th-place finishes. It's much more understandable than it used to be. It used to be a dark art of, well, maybe if I put this on the car, I'll go good.
It's funny you say that, because I was sitting here thinking about the way there's so many more eyeballs on the sport, and it's now, it's no longer Bernie's world. There's a lot of transparency coming into the sport. Yeah. And I think it's going to, there's those detractors. Every now and then you see on Twitter a hashtag not a real sport, that kind of BS. and I think that that this light of more eyeballs is
and accounting and
exactly.
feasibility
and all that. I think that's going to change all that. Well, guys, we are literally out of time. Thanks, everybody. Chris Medland, I see you're still on mute, but thanks, buddy. We appreciate you doing what you can out there. Love your work. And thanks for all those who tuned in, however you tuned in. And we'll be back one final time for Formula One, but we'll continue our Sunday night Speed City shows every Sunday night. So we'll talk to you next week.
Ciao, y'all.
Happy trails.
Bye.
Ciao.
Are we clear?